Hello, fellow Rebel Capitals. Hope you're well. My goodness gracious, the yield curve just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And now I would argue there's a 99% chance that we get a recession in 2023. Here's why. Let me go ahead and pull up a chart of the 10-year Treasury yield. Let's just use that as kind of our starting point. And then, Josh, what I'd like you to do, well, actually, I guess we have to do this. We can't do this at the same time. So, first of all, guys, let's just make a mental note. The 10-year Treasury is at 3.72%. And just a couple minutes ago, it was at 3.7. So let's just say that it's at 3.7% flat. Now, what's the 30-year Treasury trading? 30-year Treasury is trading at 3.77. So let's go ahead and make a mental note here. 10-year, roughly 3.7. 30-year, 3.77. Okay, now let's go over and Josh, pull up let's start with the 3-month. So the 3-month Treasury, and this for most, even the mainstream economists, they see this as the most powerful indicator or powerful tool for predicting recession. The 3-month Treasury is at 4.32%. So basically, we're talking about a 60 basis point difference between the 10-year Treasury and the 3-month Treasury. 60 basis points. Now, Josh, go ahead and pull up the, what's the other? You got the 1 month there, don't you? Let's look at the 1 month. 3.84. So the 10-year Treasury is trading under, and the 30-year Treasury is trading under the 1 month Treasury. And I'd say, oh, but wait, there is more, unfortunately. Now let's think about this, or let's look at reverse repo, which just let me set this up for you guys who are new to the channel. The reverse repo rate is set by the Federal Reserve, and they do this to set a floor on interest rates. So they have a range. When the Fed says we're increasing interest rates by 75 basis points, that just means it's a range between 3.75 and 4%. So they've got a top end there, which would be the discount window or the discount rate. And then they've got the one kind of in the middle, that's IOR, which that's what they're paying the banks for keeping their reserves at the Fed. And then their lowest interest rate is reverse repo, RRP. And basically the idea behind reverse repo is that if you can get paid 3.8% by just parking your reserves at the Fed or parking your quote unquote cash at the Fed, that's completely risk-free. So why would you buy or why would you lend your money to anyone else? Or why would, therefore, why would any interest rate go below that 3.8%? That's the theoretical, right? That no interest rate is going to go below 3.8% because no one is going to lend money at less than 3%. Or I guess that's the right way to say it. The lender, in other words, the buyer of the Treasury, is not going to be willing to accept a rate lower than 3.8%. I think that's the best way to say it. But what we see is that not only is the 10-year Treasury now under reverse repo, but so is the 30-year. The 30-year Treasury is now not just lower than the Fed's overnight rate, but it's lower than the rate the Fed sets up to set an absolute floor on yields, on interest rates. So this is the way they manage rates at the high end would be the discount, and the way they manage rates at the low end. And not only have they lost control of the majority of the curve, but they've lost control of the 30-year Treasury. And I mean, I can't overstate how important this is, nor can I overstate how much of a red flag this is for the economy, other than just basically by the title of this video. And that's recession odds now at 99%. Now, Josh, let's go ahead and pull up a chart of past. In fact, let's go to my Twitter because I've got a chart on, I just tweeted about this the other day. So let's go over to Twitter right here. We're going to pull up a chart of historically what happens when the 1 year inverts with the 10-year. And keep in mind, we're not talking about the 30-year inverting with reverse repo. We're talking about the 10-year inverting with the 1 year. So what I mean by that is if the 30-year inverts or the 10-year inverts with reverse repo, that's even worse. That's way worse than it inverting with the 1 year. But let's, just for the sake of this example and to go over this chart, let's use this 1 year, 10-year metric. So these red arrows indicate when the inversion happens, and these blue shaded areas are where you get the recession. Now, the one pushback that you will get from, well, actually, there's two pushbacks. The first pushback is that, oh, whoa, wait, George, wait, time out here. You're just fear-mongering. There's nothing to worry about because look at 1965. Look at this arrow right here. The curve inverted and we didn't have a recession, or we didn't have a recession until, call it, 4 or 5 years later. So that didn't predict anything. So we can't say, there's a 99% probability. We can only say that there's a, let's say 80, 85, and therefore nothing to worry about. Let's just sweep this one under the rug. Okay. But then what I point out in this tweet is that it is true that in 1965, when you had the inversion between the 1 year and the 10-year, we didn't see a recession. But GDP growth went from 10.1% down to 0.2. Let me say that again. After the inversion of the ones and tens in 1965, we did not have a recession. But within a year, approximately, GDP growth went from 10% basically down to 0%. So I don't think I would use this as an example as to why we should dismiss the yield curve altogether, especially when we're talking about the 10-year and the 30-year, not just trading below the 1 year, not just trading below the 1 month, but trading below reverse repo, which again, and I'll say this till I'm blue in the face, is the Fed's interest rate to set a floor on all other rates throughout the entire economy. And obviously they've completely lost control of this. So the other pushback you get is, well, George, you can't put any weight on this because the Fed is manipulating the bond market to such a degree through quantitative easing. Okay, fine. But were they manipulating the bond market back in 2019? The answer would be yes, they were. And I actually had someone bring up a talking point yesterday on Twitter that I thought was very interesting. They said, well, George, let's look at Japan. Let's look at their yield curve because we know they're doing yield curve control. And we know the Bank of Japan has purchased, let's say, 60% of the outstanding JGBs, their government debt. Would you give any weight to signals that were coming from the Japanese yield curve because it's pretty much completely manhandled by the Bank of Japan? And I said, actually, I would if their curve inverted. So let's just say they've got their overnight rate at 0 and their 10-year rate at, I think it's the cap is 25 basis points. So let's just assume for a moment that the 10-year JGB went to negative 1%, while their overnight rate was at 0%. I think that is definitely significant. Absolutely. So I agree that there is some manipulation here, but I would argue that the manipulation isn't significant when trying to read the predictive ability of the yield curve inversion, especially when we have this percentage of the yield curve inverted and to this degree. And this is why I'm actually very comfortable in saying that I think there's a 99% chance that we go into recession at some point in 2023. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. As always, make sure that you're standing up for freedom, liberty, free market capitalism. See you in the next video.